Hi everyone and welcome back. This is 1D Historian and today we are talking about an orthopedic saga. And in honor of Niall Horan's 30th birthday, we're going to be baking a cake.
Why are you all turning 30? They used to be so young.
In recent months, there's been a ton of social discourse regarding objects being thrown at musical artists as they're performing on stage. Many people chalk this up to a so-called love on tour effect, as the norms and behaviors of fans at the long-term Harry Styles tour set the stage for a lot of post-P-word concert etiquette. And Harry Styles was generally pretty lax about people throwing things at him on stage, encouraging fans to continue throwing things his way by catching those things in midair and frequently interacting with them. But not every One Direction boy has had the same positive opinion about objects being thrown at them on stage.
With a fucking chicken nugget.
Going all the way back to a 2014 incident that became particularly notorious because of the fandom-wide backlash it received. In June of 2014, in the midst of their Where We Are tour, One Direction performed a show in Amsterdam in customized orange sport tops. But the fun and games were short-lived. The boys were wrapping up You and I, an object long suspected to have been was thrown on stage and hit Niall Horan directly in the knee. The knee that only a couple months before he had gotten major surgery on. Fans even today are well aware of the fact that Niall Horan has what he refers to as a dodgy knee. In fact, Niall entered the 1D era with knee problems. On page 129 of their autobiography, Who We Are, Niall describes, quote, "Back in the summer of the X Factor, I was playing football on the green with my mates when I put my foot on the ball to drag it back, and suddenly it felt like someone had kicked my knee out." From that moment forward, Niall's dodgy knee was a constant concern, both to the momentum of One Direction and also to his general health and well-being. Fandom's first introduction to Niall's dodgy knee came only a couple of weeks before the band's first album, Where We Are, debuted, when Niall casually posted, "Fans teased him about it, and Niall teased back." No one suspected that the injury was anything too serious, except a couple weeks later when we got footage from the Up All Night listening party, we immediately noticed that Liam carried Niall into the interview. But again, fans weren't super concerned by this. Mostly we were sympathetic because we knew he had hurt his knee and we could see him limping a bit later on. We thought it was just a minor injury. It wasn't until nearly a year later, in October of 2012, that fans realized how serious the damage was. On a live stream, Niall brought up his dodgy knee again.
Got a bit of a dodgy knee, so it hasn't been the greatest day of my life. There's my ice pack. MRI scan on the knee. You know how it is.
And for the very first time, he mentioned the need for an operation. And a couple days after that, Niall arrived to multiple interviews on crutches.
We know each other's boundaries and stuff like that.
There is a person from a record company holding a crutch. Who owns the crutch?
Me, Niall.
Make something up.
So I got attacked by a squirrel in Battersea Park.
But then only a couple of days after that, Niall ditched the crutches for the boys' performance at the BBC Radio 1 Teen Awards. Fans grew very concerned after witnessing him hopping around on one foot during the performance. Especially when, at an interview a few days later, he once again confirmed the need for surgical intervention.
Niall identified his problem as a floating kneecap, in medical term, patellar subluxation, meaning that the kneecap has the tendency to dislocate frequently due to unhealed past fracture damage. The only way to correct this is with the surgery.
But unfortunately, due to One Direction's hectic touring schedule, Niall wasn't given the opportunity to have that surgery.
Have to go and get an operation done? When? Whenever I have time.
This was something that the fandom was always angry about, that Niall was, in our view, as far as we could tell, being denied necessary medical treatment for the sake of tour profit. The ordinary wear and tear of being the jumping one in a band full of nightly hijinks like the Human Pyramid, as well as regular bouts of stage wrestling, made it inevitable that Niall's knee would be damaged more and more throughout 2013.
For most people with this condition, treatment is a simple lateral release. But Niall said he needed a more serious surgery based on his scarring, likely needed a bone realignment or full cushion procedure.
Niall's procedure was performed in Colorado by Dr. Richard Stedman, a world-renowned doctor specializing in sports injuries. Fans didn't know exactly when this procedure was taking place until it was already over. British tabloid The Sun released these pap photos of a pale Niall in the throes of recovery pain. With fans fussing and worrying over these photos, Niall was forced to come on and post that yes, he had the knee surgery finally, and he was doing just fine. Fans were relieved, and over the next few weeks, Niall was very open about sharing his entire rehabilitation process with us. Soon enough, he was back to his old jumpy self. We were glad to see him doing so well, right up until that fateful moment on stage in Amsterdam.
Niall, can we just embrace for a second, please? Begin.
And that night he came online to be uncharacteristically serious. Fans were furious that anybody could be so careless around Niall after he had just had surgery, and rightly so. Very luckily, the whole situation didn't seem to cause any long-term recovery setbacks. Niall went on to heal from the surgery so successfully that very same year, he hosted a charity football challenge. God only knows